This is 5 on 20 News with Phyllis James
and Richard Aguirre, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It is Monday, August 28th. Let's talk local headlines.
As you may have heard, the president pardoned former Maricopa Sheriff Joe Arpaio on Friday, drawing both praise and criticism from Arizona lawmakers. Arpaio was cleared after being found guilty last month of criminal contempt of court after ignoring orders from a federal judge. The orders related to stopping Arpaio's infamous immigration posse, which was found to racially profile minorities in the county. In a tweet, the president called Arpaio a patriot when announcing the pardon. Current Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone said in a press release that the people had the final say, referring to his election win in November, where Penzone beat Arpaio. Penzone went on to say that we are dedicated to earning trust and confidence from the community. Senator John McCain said that the pardon undermines the president's claim for the respect of rule of law, as Mr. Arpaio has shown no remorse for his actions. Arpaio appeared on several cable news shows last week, insisting that he was a target of Obama-era holdovers who were unfairly using the justice system to punish him. Trump supporters repeated the phrase that Arpaio was just doing his job and advocating for the pardon. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey struck a somewhat neutral tone when he said that Arpaio deserves credit for helping to reduce crime in Maricopa County over his long career in law enforcement. Ducey then said in a statement that Arpaio can move on and enjoy his retirement. However, Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton and Representatives Ruben Gallego and Raul Grijalva also condemned the pardon, calling it a total misuse of the pardon system. Stanton called it a slap in the face to the people of Maricopa County, especially the Latino community and those that Arpaio victimized. In an interview with the Washington Examiner, Arpaio expressed interest in running for office in Arizona and even threw out the possibility of challenging Jeff Flake for his Senate seat in 2018.
Speaking of Arpaio, according to a Washington Post report, the president asked attorney Jeff Sessions about dropping the case against Sheriff Joe months ago. According to the report, Trump was told at the time that it would be an inappropriate move to go ahead with the pardon before the criminal case had been completed. However, at the time, Trump already decided that if Arpaio were convicted, then he would grant him clemency, as he ended up doing on Friday. Trump announced the pardon in a statement where he said Sheriff Joe Arpaio is now 85 years old, and after more than 50 years of admirable service for the nation, he is a worthy candidate for a presidential pardon. He later announced the pardon on Twitter, but he reportedly made the decision without consulting the Justice Department. Arpaio was vocal about his support for the president during his 2016 run and had spoken openly about his hopes that the president would pardon him. Trump has taken hits from both sides over the weekend for his decision. Former Republican strategists argued that asking Sessions to drop the case against Arpaio was an abuse of power because it appears as though he's pressuring the Justice Department. However, Trump's campaign advisor, Michael Caputo, said that it was only a simple inquiry into the case. The New York Times, Slate, Washington Post, and National and Hill all wrote about how pardoning Arpaio can possibly be an impeachable offense. They claim that pardoning Arpaio, Trump is challenging the judicial branch, which would be an attempt to extend his executive branch powers.
A decorated veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps who served in the Persian Gulf War is facing deportation to Mexico despite evidence that he is a U.S. citizen. George Ibarro was ruled a citizen by a federal judge, but he's still scheduled for deportation. Ibarro was transferred from the Arizona Department of Corrections prison in Tucson to an immigrant detention center in Eloy last week. He was handed over to immigration authorities after serving a 7-year sentence for aggravated assault. Ibarro was convicted of firing 2 rounds through his Phoenix home's front door after officers were responding to a 911 call he had placed. No one was injured in the incident, and Ibarro claimed that he was suffering a delusional episode induced by post-traumatic stress from serving in the war. At the time, Ibarra believed that immigration authorities were coming to take away his children. It turns out he was right. 3 months before the incident, Ybarra was in an ICE detention facility following a drug-related incident. After being detained, he tried to convince a federal immigration judge that he was a citizen. Finally, in May 2011, Ybarra was released from ICE custody after the judge ruled that he was a citizen. But Homeland Security lawyers appealed the ruling and continued to push for his deportation. At this time, Ybarra remains at the detention facility in Eloy while immigration officials begin to restart the deportation proceedings that were suspended in 2011.
I have post-traumatic stress from a burrito I had last week.
Not a burrito. Oh my goodness.
A group of 34 Arizona Red Cross workers are being deployed to Texas to help with Hurricane Harvey relief efforts. So far, the American Red Cross's 24 community shelters took in over 1,400 people that were taking refuge from the storm. The Red Cross also has 28 emergency response vehicles and 40 more on the way to Texas. Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston on Saturday, killing 8 and turning the city's streets into rivers almost immediately. People were advised to seek shelters on their roof and call 911. However, emergency responders were so inundated with calls that they couldn't answer them all, which sent some to seek help on social media. And Twitter was aflame with heartbreaking tweets of Texans desperately looking for help from the incoming storm, which was downgraded to a tropical storm by the end of the weekend, but began as a Category 4. Coast Guard and National Guard performed thousands of rescues all over the weekend as the president gave the state additional latitude as to where state funds could be allocated. Almost 300,000 were without power as of Saturday morning. The public hospital for Harris County, which includes Houston, began evacuating patients on Saturday after the building lost power because of the storm. The National Weather Service said in a tweet that the storm was unprecedented and that was unknown and beyond anything experienced. The two major airports in the Houston area, William P. Hobby and George Bush Intercontinental, were closed on Sunday into today because the areas surrounding the airports were flooded. There are a few ways to help out with relief efforts. You can make an automatic $10 donation to Red Cross by texting Harvey to 90999. You can also donate to Catholic charities by texting CCUSA Disaster to 71777 or donate to the Salvation Army on their website.
And I want to take a moment to talk about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We are going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us, do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. And if you think there's a story we're missing, a person we should interview, an upcoming event we should cover, or have any news tips for us, shoot an email to info@creativetucson.org. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of view. So don't be strangers. And now in national and international news.
Yes.
Yes.
National and international news. A flood of refugees to Canada is causing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to walk back and offer to accept all refugees fleeing the threat of deportation in the United States. Trudeau's government is being criticized for giving false hope to thousands of asylum seekers arriving daily to the country. Since the start of last year, over 11,300 people have crossed into Canada from the United States, with the pace picking up in recent weeks. This has caused Canadian officials to set up a temporary refugee camp on Montreal's Olympic Stadium, which is now housing 500 people and being overseen by the country's military. Trudeau has set out to tone down the welcoming image to dissuade refugees from continuing to surge into the country. While he has continued to highlight that Canada is an open and welcoming society, Trudeau pointed out that you must follow the rules, and there are many. Conservatives in Canada, such as MP Michelle Rempel, say that Trudeau's immigration policy has destroyed the system, which Rempel says is in shambles. Rempel said that a tweet from Trudeau in January welcoming refugees was irresponsible and linked to the surge of asylum seekers now surging over the border. Canada's new Democratic Party also accused Trudeau of being internationally misleading with the tweet. He pointed out that the people who have been denied asylum in the United States are not allowed to seek asylum in Canada. This has resulted in thousands being turned away at the United States border, leaving the asylum seekers with few options. MP Jenny Kwan of the New Democratic Party says this policy, combined with Trudeau's message, caused the asylum seekers to take the risk and cross the border illegally. She called on Trudeau to suspend the asylum rule, which is called the Safe Third County Agreement. Safe Third Country Agreement. Several organizations, including Amnesty International and the Canadian Council for Refugees, have also called on Trudeau to suspend the agreement. However, Trudeau told reporters this week that the country has no plans to change the pact. In recent weeks, about 85% of asylum seekers have been Haitians who have been living in the United States illegally. In May, the Trump administration threatened to end a long-standing humanitarian program for Haitians that would potentially result in the deportation of as many as 58,000 Haitians.
Violence erupted at dueling protests in Berkeley, California yesterday, resulting in 13 arrests. The first protest was the Rally Against Hate, which was billed as an anti-Marxist gathering, but was later canceled. Despite the cancellation, both right and left-wing protesters showed up and largely kept the peace until early afternoon. But skirmishes began to break out after several dozen left-wing protesters surrounded at a handful of right-wing demonstrators, according to CNN affiliate KPIX. Left-wing Antifa members entered the park, heightening the tension, but were left untouched by police. At that point, scuffles began to break out all over the park. One man was detained for allegedly wearing a mask to the event, while a police officer was injured during an arrest. Paramedics treated 6 people, according to police. Despite the scuffles, the event was largely peaceful for most of the day. Berkeley Mayor Jesse Aguirre said on his Facebook page that I applauded the more than 7,000 people who came out today to peacefully oppose bigotry, hatred, and racism. The event was especially tense because Berkeley was the site of violence between the left and right back in April, when right-wing agitator Milo Yiannopoulos appeared at the University of California for a speech. That event ended with clashes that caused $100,000 worth of damage to the campus. This is partly what led Joey Gibson, the organizer of the event, to cancel. He said that he feared violence and blamed San Francisco Mayor Ed Lee and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi for stoking tensions.
2 human rights groups filed 2 separate lawsuits against the Trump administration over the recent ban against transgender people serving in the military. The plaintiffs include both transgender people who are currently serving in the military and those who wish to serve but are no longer able to because of the ban. The first lawsuit was filed today at a federal court in Seattle by Lambda Legal and OutServe on behalf of true transgender people who wish to enlist but are unable to. The second lawsuit was filed by the ACLU of Maryland on behalf of 6 current transgender service members. Both lawsuits say the ban is in violation of equal protections and due process. The Lambda lawsuit also says that the ban violates free speech protections. The president announced the ban in a series of tweets in July, but didn't officially sign the ban until Friday. Trump gave wide latitude to Defense Secretary James Mattis in deciding what happens with current transgender soldiers, who number around 10,000 according to Defense Department estimates. In addition to the ban, the military will no longer pay for gender reassignment surgeries. Trump's ban upended a year-old Obama administration policy that allowed transgendered people to serve in the military.
More than a quarter of serious cases of nursing home abuse are not reported to the police, according to a new report by the Office of Inspector General. The cases went unreported despite state and federal authorities requiring that serious cases of abuse be turned over to law enforcement. Inspector General Curtis Roy and his team looked at records from 2015 and 2016 and found 134 cases of abuse severe enough to require emergency treatment. The majority of these cases involve sexual assault. The incidents spread across 33 states, with Illinois having the most, with 17 incidents of abuse. 72% of the incidents were reported to police within 2 hours, but the remaining 28% were not. The Inspector General's team ended up reporting the remaining 134 cases to police. They issued a report warning that Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which regulates nursing homes, needs to be more to do more to track cases of abuse. They suggest cross-referencing Medicare claims from nursing home residents with their claims from the emergency room.
North Korea filed a ballistic missile over Japan, causing the country's government to order North Korea. Okay. North Korea filed a ballistic missile over Japan, causing the country's government to order citizens to take cover. This was the second time in 4 days that North Korean authorities ignored warnings from President Trump and launched missiles. According to the security officials, the missiles were launched from the North Korean capital of Pyongyang and flew over Hokkaido Island in North Japan. This is the first time that North Korea projectile crossed over Japan since 2009, when they launched a satellite over the area. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe released a statement confirming that missile launch and stating that we will make utmost efforts to firmly protect the lives of the people. This was 5 on 20 News. My name is Richard Aguirre.
And I'm Phyllis James. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube and Facebook accounts for all the latest Creative Tucson content. Feel free to bother us at info@creativetucson.org. Don't forget to tune in later at 9 p.m. for Locals Only Live in Studio 2A with Nobody, aka Willis Earl Beal. Thanks for watching. Stay creative, Tucson. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one.